All right, welcome everybody. I'm Jabby Kuwait, joined by Carly King.
Hello there.
So we're going to look at Insider's video, How One Movie Trilogy Ruined Action Films Forever, The Art of Film. You have done martial arts, you said?
Martial arts for about 12 years of my life.
What did you study?
I studied Taekwondo, Krav Maga, Muay Thai kickboxing, and Kali.
Do you know how to properly say Taekwondo?
Taekwondo.
Yeah.
I've always pronounced it as Taekwondo because that's what my white instructor said.
So the proper way, I mean, I don't speak Korean, but at least for the first word, it's Taekwondo.
So it's Taekwondo.
Taekwondo, like
Gotcha.
And then as far as Muay Thai goes, I don't think you need to say kickboxing.
I have to specify because people are like,
Confused?
Muay Thai, what's that?
Yeah.
I'm like, kickboxing.
If you say Muay Thai, that's basically saying Thai kickboxing.
Yeah.
That's for you guys more than Carly
That's
King.
right.
I have called out the Bourne trilogy multiple times on this channel, citing it as like one of my pet peeves of this is what bad looks like in terms of how to shoot a fight scene. Let's check this out and see what they have to say. By the way, if you guys haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and pretty please vote this up. Let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. If you want to see more Carly King, you can find more of her on YouTube and on Twitch. And so there'll be links in the description below. I just take it too.
You've probably seen this countless
Yummy
times. The shaky cameras, the fast cuts, and just plain overall mayhem. It's sometimes so bad that you may ask yourself, what am I watching? So how do we exactly get to this? Let's rewind a bit.
Do you think most people care?
I think most people who haven't studied it don't care.
I wonder if they know subconsciously. I was watching a video this morning from Vox talking about filmmaker mode on TVs, and I kept thinking to myself, well, if so many people are watching with motion flow on, most people don't give a shit about how they watch the movie. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. But clearly people don't care.
The one common denominator among older action films is clarity. And it makes sense. Earlier action films, especially martial art pictures, focused on showing the physical feats of
And
its
technique.
stars. To achieve this, scenes were often shot in a wide angle with most of the body visible in the frame.
I love that the two movies you just showed are American films. Enter the Dragon is American. Big Brawl is American.
Is it American?
Yeah, that's one of the earliest American films Jackie Chan participated in. I'm imagining Jackie Chan had somewhat of a say-so on how that was shot, which is why it was shot wide.
I would think so.
Cool. I'm just surprised he wasn't like showing kung fu films from the 70s because that's a good reference
those
point.
are good.
But anyway, yeah, Enter the Dragon. When he was showing that, I was like, yes, that is an example of something where you can see it, but I still feel like that wasn't shot the best.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
The camera also rarely moves, and when it does, it follows
good.
the actions of its characters to accentuate speed and power.
Right.
But modern action movies aren't shot this way anymore. Instead, they're choppy, chaotic, and a lot of times just confusing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know
When you
what's going
compare
on.
these movies side by side,
How many people
the
are in that
difference
scene?
is unmistakable. But perhaps the real shock comes when you realize that most of this is actually intentional.
They're trying to hide the actors' inability to do the fight scenes and stuff like that.
Right.
And when you chop it up like that, that means it's mostly shot with inserts, which means that you're able to get off the set quicker.
Right.
Back to the question, how did
I
we
hate
get
it.
to
I
this
hated
point?
the,
Well, it's impossible to pinpoint a specific source, but one of the biggest influences was probably the original Bourne trilogy.
Absolutely.
These films were revolutionary in the action genre, not to mention both a commercial and critical success.
Yes.
And from jittery handheld cameras to rapidly firing cuts, you can trace all the problems in modern action films to this series. An easy way to see how the Bourne trilogy changed action films is by looking at the average shot length, or ASL for short. It's a cinematic statistic that measures the average length of a scene before a cut. In the first film, Bourne Identity, the ASL was around 4 seconds, which then became 2.4 seconds
Wow.
in its sequel, Bourne Supremacy. And in the final
Jeez.
film, Bourne Ultimatum, a total of about 3,200 shots were squashed into a 105-minute running time.
Wow.
That's a cut
That's crazy.
happening almost every 2 seconds of the film.
Having a cut every 2.5 seconds is actually not the worst thing. It's how it's shot and edited.
Right.
If it's shot well and if it's edited well and you can track everything that's happening in the sequence,
Right.
it's okay.
But if you can't track anything, you're
Yeah.
just confused the entire time and your mind's like trying to keep up with what your eyes are seeing.
Exactly. When you watch a Bourne fight scene, the camera is like this. And I'm like, what is happening?
Another change you can notice is in the camera work. Doug Liman in Bourne Identity shot his sequence more like the classic action cinemas we're used to. Wide angles and fewer cuts to capture the action as clearly as possible. But under Paul Greengrass's direction, the camera becomes a lot shakier and closer
I don't know
to
what's
the
going on.
Hurts my head.
I
He
know.
prefers his
I have a
audience
headache.
to experience the film rather than to simply observe it. And that's
can't
what
even see
Bourne
what's going
really
on.
is. It's an experience. The series is actually edited in a similar way our consciousness and sensory perception works, how we gather bits of information to create a larger whole. It's especially evident in chase scenes like this, where we see everything from Bourne's perspective and are given the chance to interpret different clues to track down a target. There is an intensity to these films that we can't quite place. And the secret lies in how Greengrass chooses to shoot an action sequence. Although every cut and angle seems choppy, chaotic, and mostly random, once you take a closer look at it, you realize that everything serves a purpose.
It does.
But not everyone dedicates the same amount of thought like Greengrass, and sadly, it's made for some pretty terrible action films in recent years. There's a reason Hollywood was so quick to adopt Greengrass's style, because fast-paced editing makes it easy to use visual trickery to turn anyone into an action star. All it requires is to put 3 different shots together:
It's like we don't need
Action.
training anymore.
impact,
No
Yeah.
more training.
and reaction. This is why we often see a cut right before the impact, then cut to the moment after the impact.
And then you
takes
hear
place.
it.
Yeah.
They cut to hide the action. This not only makes the action look fake, but it kills the overall momentum of the scene as well. But in Bourne, each cut is a deliberate act to quicken the pace of the film. It's never really used to hide anything. Every hit, every impact is fully delivered in front of the camera. The camera doesn't cut until the blow has been fully registered, making the fight more authentic and engaging. The combination of action, impact, and reaction still exists in this method of editing. It's just not as obvious when replicated incorrectly. And although Greengrass does sacrifice some level of clarity for the sake of adding intensity, it doesn't mean he's abandoned it completely. In fact, when you watch any of the action sequences from the Bourne series, you'd be surprised to notice that it isn't as confusing as it first appears. And there are clever tricks at play here if you know where to look. First, check out the frequent use of wide-angle shots like these. They let the audience understand the space and the placement of each character. Sometimes in an obvious angle as this, from above, as the fight moves on to a new location. Or how most of the blows, the impacts, and brief inserts whenever a new weapon is acquired are all centered on the frame, guiding our
Interesting.
focus, gathering these hints of information more quickly.
That's all well and good, but why does the camera have to shake so much?
Exactly.
It's so shaky.
Gosh.
It's unnecessary.
If they kept the POVs of the actors, like filming, like looking at things, if that was shaky, that'd be great. But they don't have to make the shots from far away shaky, if that makes sense.
I see what you're saying. I think that the reason why they make the whites shaky is just for consistency more than anything.
I guess, yeah.
Now, let's look at bad examples. The biggest problems
we
in
go.
films that try to imitate the Bourne style is that they take it too far, exaggerating everything. For instance, in this scene, you can see the fast cuts, kind of like the Bourne style, but it's paired with the same shot repeated numerous times in rapid succession.
Like Unjin.
We've seen repetitions in past action films hundreds of times, but not quite to this extreme. And let's admit it, there's no reason to watch Liam Neeson jumping over the same fence 10 times.
I want to see that.
Yeah.
Even in car chase sequences where repetitions are bound to happen, one impact is enough if shot correctly. Or even in music, most recent films have a track that plays throughout the entire action sequences, setting the pace and sometimes fading it out to accentuate key moments like this. But it's the entirely opposite in Bourne. There is no
That's a cool
music.
shot.
What builds momentum and tension is the actual sound of the action itself. Every sound from the brutal impact to the various tools of combat creates a rhythm, a beat, without a single note.
There is rhythm in the fighting. There's like there should be like sort of a musical rhythm to the whole thing.
Right.
I mean, especially with the traditional like sort of kung fu fight scenes. Yes and no. I agree with this and I disagree with it because there are fight scenes. There's plenty of fight scenes with dope music to underscore it. Like if you go back and watch the Matrix fight scene in the dojo. Between Neo and Morpheus, like that's fun.
Yeah.
Like that music
yeah.
helped drive the momentum of the action.
Like in Kung Fu Panda, I like the scenes where they have the music in the background.
Kung Fu Panda is one of my all-time favorite movies, but I would have never brought that up as a fight scene reference.
It's what wanted me to get into martial arts. I wanted to be Tigress as a child.
Well, it's working.
Thank you.
One of my all-time favorite fight scenes that I've mentioned multiple times is from Eastern Promises with Viggo Mortensen. He's like balls naked, like
nice.
He's completely naked, and he's in the middle of fighting these two guys who are like jacked.
And clothed.
Clothed, yeah.
Okay.
Hands down one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen, especially from the West. The way it's shot, there's no music, it's super intense. You can see everything going on. There's not a lot of cuts, only when it needs to, but you feel like you're there, and it feels intense, and it feels scary. And you don't need like crazy techniques to emphasize what's going on. You see his vulnerability, he's butt naked. The choreography is really good because it serves, you know, it feels real.
All these small details and
really
tricks
intense.
make the action of Bourne more coherent and more intense than anything we've seen before or since. It's a beautiful combination of what was successful in traditional action films with a new innovative technique. Bourne can't be blamed for how bad action films are these days, but the blame is on the filmmakers who are trying to replicate its technique and failing miserably. Audiences are smarter than what some directors believe. We can easily notice when we're being manipulated to see and feel in a way that is not natural to us. And perhaps that's what differentiates Bourne from so many of its predecessors. It knows that editing can be used to make anyone an action star, but not necessarily a good action film. And it's aware what this genre of cinema is really about in the end. Action.
It's interesting how he briefly shows really like epic martial arts action films so as to say that the quality is the same, or I don't know. It's like I don't understand why he's showing those, because like sometimes he's showing like these cool martial arts epics, like he just showed the Raid 2. Even though I don't love all the fight scenes in the Raid series, they certainly speak more to what I think fight scenes are supposed to look like.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like those fight scenes are crazy intense. You feel the peril. And is beautiful techniques.
Right. I'm a huge fan of the Kill Bill movies, and I feel like a lot of the fight scenes in there are like exactly what I want to see from these kinds of movies. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I agree with some of the ideas that is being expressed in this video in terms of like what the target is. Paul Greengrass, like the only film from him that I actually liked was Flight 93. Outside of that, I really don't like his stuff. I find that the fight scenes are kind of offensive in terms of just the way it's shot. It's like that it doesn't need to be shot that way. And then seeing the copycats just makes it worse. I agree with the idea that it's not Paul Greengrass's fault that everyone else is doing this. It's on the responsibility of the filmmaker to tell the best story possible in, you know, using the tools that they have at their disposal. But what are you gonna do when you have Liam Neeson, who's like in his 60s or something, as your action lead? Like, there's only so much that you can do.
Every time I see Liam Neeson, I'm like, why don't you have a lightsaber? You know what I mean? I just immediately think of Qui-Gon Jinn. I'm like, where's the long ponytail?
Showing him hop over the fence 12 times.
It's not something we need to see.
It's a bit superfluous.
No,
yeah, it's a bit much. Anyways, you guys, thanks so much for hanging out. Let us know your feelings in the comments below. How much do you like the Bourne trilogy? How much do you not? I'm Jabby Kawai. This is
Carly King.
Peace out.